Welcome back, y'all. It's the Amanda Seales Show. I am Amanda Seales. Now, I don't know if you heard this story, but this to me is just another example again of America doing Americaning. More Black folks waiting for a kidney transplant are being moved up the list. The assessment used for years, by the way, I learned this from our guest. The assessment used for years to determine someone's kidney function is racist, and in some cases, it has kept people who needed a new kidney off the transplant list for years. Now, 14,000, did you hear the number I just said? 14,000 Black kidney transplant candidates are being given credit for lost waiting time. Medical student and influencer Joel Bervell joins us now to break this down. But by the way, you be breaking this like this is like your wheelhouse on these internets.
Yes, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I talk all about racial bias in medicine. So the ways that healthcare still perpetuates racism in the healthcare field. I think we all think about medicine as objective, and it's unfortunately not. So I show the ways that it still fails Black patients specifically and needs to improve.
So can you tell me why the assessment of Black patients, specifically as it relates to kidney function, was racist?
Yeah. So in medicine, there's an equation called the GFR equation, and it treats Black people differently than all races. GFR stands for glomerular filtration rate. GFR. And for a long time, the equation that it had included race only for Black people. So as an overview, GFR, the worse your kidneys functioning, the lower your GFR is. Right. The higher your GFR is, the better your kidneys are functioning. But for Black patients, and for Black patients only, the GFR number had a racial adjustment that it increased the GFR value only for Black patients. So that sounds crazy because what that's assuming is that Black patients all have better kidney functioning than any other race. And when you look at the research why, there was a study that was done a long time ago that essentially looked at a small group of Black patients, found out that there was higher levels of this muscle breakdown protein called creatinine, and they assumed that all Black patients had higher muscle mass, and so that's why they had higher creatinine breakdown. So they adjusted it by increasing that number. And now, as we're talking, you've probably heard that myth before that all Black people are muscular, all athletic. That's what was baked into the equation, leading us to have this artificially increased kidney level for Black patients. What that ended up doing is making it more difficult for Black patients to get access to kidney transplant specialists and kidney transplants, to be diagnosed with higher levels of chronic kidney disease, and to be able to just get care like dialysis if they needed it. And so, as you mentioned, 14,000 patients now retrospectively had their charts looked at and were able to be moved up on the kidney transplant list. But it took a lot of work before we got there.
I mean, what was the catalyst that even shifted this to, a point of corrective measures?
I always go back to 2020 and what was happening there. I think we all heard about COVID, and there was this racial reckoning, especially in the medical field. It started with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. And then you take the Black physicians and medical students and residents that were in healthcare already, who were dissatisfied with what things that we've been seeing for a long time and not really being able to explain. And so essentially, there was a group of doctors, and I always like to highlight this, it's Black women physicians that led the movement and said, we are going to look at this equation and really better understand if it makes sense or not. There was a medical student at University of Washington, Naomi Kinsey, who challenged her own medical school as a medical student and said, why do we use this equation? University of Washington became the first school to actually change that GFR equation in the hospitals that were used there. And then there's doctors like Dr. Ananya, I'm going to get her name, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, so I'll find it correctly. But she was instrumental in doing the research to prove that this equation made no sense, that we need to change it. Amaka Ananya. And so really making sure that we highlight those people, the Black women that were specifically key to getting these equations to change, both at the medical student and doctor level, at the risk of their own careers.
I mean, this is so it's on track with America and what I feel like so many of us continue to say every day. Like everything is attached to racism. When we get back, I would love to hear more about, just kind of like the actual application for our listeners, like around their kidneys, right? Because this is something that is plaguing everyone, but also the Black community. It seems to feel like whatever's plaguing folks, we go and get it worse than everybody else. Like that seems like the norm, but I do want to point out, Joel is here in scrubs, y'all. He's really doing this. Like,
he's the real deal.
Where are you now in your training?
Yeah, so I'm in my last year of medical school. I graduated in December, so it's coming up real quick. Yeah, I'm almost there. I cannot wait. It's been a journey, y'all. It's been a journey. Medical school is no joke. But literally right now I'm calling in from this place called Clarkston, Washington. We do rural rotations in medical school. And so I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm probably the only Black person for, I kid you not, 300 miles. Like that's what it feels like. All my patients, when I walk in, you can see their look. They're like, oh, whoa. You know what I mean? They're all super nice about it. They're all super nice. And they're all like, good luck. Like, you got this. But I can also tell like who is this kid? And they always ask me like, where are you from? Because they know I'm not from around Clarkston. But it's been a good time.
I'd have fun with that.
I mix it up every so often. Sometimes I'm like, I'm from Seattle. Sometimes I'm from Canada. Sometimes I grew up in Australia, New Zealand. There's some, you can tell some stories. And
do you know, so at this point, you know what your specialty is, yeah?
Not quite. I'm going back and forth. I want to do surgery. That's one of the ones on my list. And I think a lot of people get surprised by that, but I think surgery has some of the biggest disparities in medicine. One of the ones I think about a lot is Black patients are 4 times as likely to get amputations when compared to any other race. 4 times as likely. A lot of it comes from right. And there's just so many reasons why, from just lack of education in terms of campaigns that are put out there, to doctors maybe being a little too trigger happy. And I've heard that literally from other surgeons to,
I watched Grey's Anatomy. There was always a whole thing about people just being too quick to cut. Stop being so quick to cut.
Yeah. And the thing about surgery is it's just as much to know about when do you operate as when do you not operate. And so I love the operating room. I love surgery, but I think we also just need more Black doctors in that field to be able to let our community know, when do you get surgery? When do you not get surgery?
I definitely feel like that's one of the biggest things that our community suffers from in terms of how to interact in the medical space, is just lack of knowledge, right? Of how to interact. I know that I feel like because my mom was a nurse, she always made me advocate for myself when I would go to the doctor. But I know, I have friends who have told me that their parents were kind of scared of the doctor. It was like the doctor is always right. And so they never felt like they could really advocate for themselves.
Yep. My parents are the same way. My dad is constantly scared to go to the doctor. And he recently had to go because he was diagnosed with high blood pressure. Hopefully I can say that. Hopefully no one's going to use that information anyway. But he had me on the phone with him the whole time, and I'm walking him through, and the doctors had started on some medications and we're getting lab tests. And I was able to say, I want you to go back next time you're there and ask for this, this, and this specifically, things that I felt like they had not done enough of a workup on my dad. Not everyone has that community, that person in their life to do that. But it made me realize just how important it is having that node of knowledge to be able to bounce off of, that's within that system that you can trust. And most Black people don't have that, because in the United States, we have less than 6% of physicians that are Black. And I always talk about, that's not accidental. That was on purpose. Schools kept Black people out of the hospitals until the civil rights era. It wasn't until 1965 that it was illegal to turn someone away from medical school for being Black. And so you think about what that did to a whole entire generation of Black doctors. Or even you stretch even back a little bit further, you go to the early 1900s, there was a guy named Abraham Flexner who literally shut down all but 2 of the schools that were meant to train Black doctors at a time when Black doctors couldn't be trained anywhere else. And even if you look more recently, the schools that train the most Black doctors in the United States right now are still HBCUs. Howard University, Morehouse, they're still training the most Black doctors out of any institution in the United States. So these problems run system deep and have been around for decades, generations.
When you hear this new just influx of it's DEI, and it's lowering standards for medical schools, et cetera. Can you just speak to that?
That makes me so mad. That literally raised my blood pressure to hear that, Because what diversity, equity, inclusion
we know
is,
it runs in
it's
the family, so be careful.
no, honestly, that's real. Right, I gotta go to the gym right after this. Exercise, y'all. Exercise. That's one way to keep your blood pressure down. But no, it makes me really upset because one, it's intentional. What they're trying to do is misconstrue the public about what diversity, equity, inclusion means. There are no quotas right now in medical school, so that's the first thing to get off. They are not lowering standards for students that come in from different backgrounds. That's number two. If anything, it is reaching out to the community, expanding the pool that they reach out to, creating programs to invest at a young age at elementary school, middle school, high school. It's about creating research opportunities for students. It's about creating research opportunities in things like clinical trials to make sure that we're testing drugs on diverse populations. It's about scholarships. And that's one thing that's really annoys me. Scholarships to get to medical school. Because a lot of people don't know this, but to get through 4 years of medical school, it costs $250,000. If you don't have money for that, if you come from a background where your parents can't pay for that, what are you going to do? Right. And so scholarships is another thing that I've seen actual lawsuits against in this anti-DEI crusade.
Yeah.
So I think expanding what people think about when they think about DEI, it's not about hiring practices. It's about so much more than that. It's about the entire way of recruiting and reaching out and investing in communities that have been overlooked for so long.
How many times have I said it, y'all? I brought someone here just so they could say it too. All right. Joel, where can people follow you so they can get caught up and learn and just really get invested in all the information that you share?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. You can find me on Instagram, on TikTok, even on Twitter. I don't like Twitter, but sometimes you got to dive into those communities where there's echo chambers, right? You can even find me on LinkedIn. So find me. I post videos. I try and post almost every single day about a new topic. I promise if you follow, you'll learn something new.
How in the world did you have time to post a video every single day in med school? Like,
I won't lie
already.
I'm tired. I mean, like this morning, I get up every day at 5 a.m. If I work at 7, I'm making videos beforehand. I post them during the day or I schedule them. Right now, when I get home, I'm going to make 3 videos for hopefully the next few days. But the problem, I think, is that there's just so much information to talk about.
Right.
Like, I have a list of, I kid you not, 100 different topics I could dive into right now. And it's scary to think that 100 things that people don't know that affect their health simply because of our race. But that's why I do it. It encourages me every day when I see someone say, I saw your video and I went to the doctor and I got diagnosed with cancer. Or I saw your video and I got moved up 5 years on the kidney transplant list. Or I saw your video and I knew the pulse oximeter was going to work well for me. So I was able to have a conversation with my doctor about that. Those are the stories that keep me going. Even when I'm tired, I'm like, someone out there needs this right now. Even if I can't post, I'll post an old video that I know will inspire someone or get that information out there. So I found my purpose. That's why I'm here.
Okay, Hippocratic Oath. We love to hear it. We love to hear it. Thank you so much, Joel. We appreciate you. Y'all, make sure you go and follow Joel and make sure that you continue to get more informed about your medical status, your history, all the above. We'll be right back. The Amanda Seales Show on a group chat Thursday.